The homeless situation in many American cities is a real mess, and it's getting worse, and there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. It doesn't need to be this way. There are ways of solving the problem. Hi, my name is John Jagt, and I've worked with the homeless in the City of Toronto for 32 years. For 22 of those years, I was the head of the Homeless Services Department. Toronto's a huge city, and we had devised a lot of innovative services and programs, and we got to the point where nobody needed to be on the streets at night, and we had more than 7,000 people indoors at peak periods. I retired 15 years ago. Since that time, I have immigrated to the US, and more recently, I've actually become an American citizen. So I'm very disturbed by the images of the homeless encampments, and that has prompted me to share the wealth of experience and knowledge that I gained to offer my solutions to how you can eradicate these encampments and the homeless from the streets of our great cities. Removing the homeless from the streets is an act of kindness. We're not trying to hurt people. The reason I say that is because living on the streets always means a downhill spiral. People are getting worse, and helping them make different choices, bringing them indoors and so forth, can only improve their lives. If you leave them to sort out their problems on the streets, they will get worse and they will die an early death. There are better ways to address these problems. I'm going to be doing a series of about 10 videos describing the different segments of who the homeless people are, and then towards the end of it, I'm going to be offering a couple videos to outline what I think are the steps that cities need to take to deal with it. It can be done. People that have comments or suggestions, please feel free to send them in, and we'll try to answer those in upcoming videos. I believe that the use of tents is a game changer. It gives pimps and low-level drug dealers an operating base. It's quite obvious that the homeless in these encampments are receiving a lot of material assistance. I know that they're not going to a sporting goods store to buy their tents. They receive sleeping bags and mattresses and clothes and food, and the list goes on and on. More stuff than many of them can handle by the evidence of all the trash on the streets. I heard one person comment on TV that, oh, if the city just gave us showers and toilets out here, this would be perfect. Obviously, that's a very biased way of thinking of it. In some cities, like San Francisco, they actually give the homeless people cash. In San Francisco, it's $70 a week. You can supplement that with panhandling, and of course, there's a lot of petty crimes. One of the petty crimes, and I'm not saying this is true for all the homeless, but one of the petty crimes is breaking into cars. I bought this tool. It's familiar to most of you. You can get 2 of these for $9.99 on Amazon. This tool, which is meant as a safety thing to break out of your car in the case of an accident, is better at breaking a car window than a baseball bat. One quick tap like that, the window shatters. You reach in and you steal a laptop or whatever's laying on the seat. And San Francisco has 70 break-ins per night, 25,000 per year. As I said, there's a lot of street criminals who are not homeless, but a lot of homeless are using this again to get the money. That laptop may be worth $800, but they'll sell it the next day to somebody else on the streets for $50 because that's all they need for their fix for that day. Giving out free needles is plain stupid. I know it's meant to reduce harm in terms of the spread of disease, but you have to think about who you're giving them to. 80% of homeless women have a mental health issue. 80%. 35% of homeless men have a mental health issue. The worst thing they can do is to take street drugs as a self-medication. It's just a downward spiral for them, and giving them free needles is just giving them a terrible message. The other thing about giving money and needles and all of that is incentivizing people to come to the cities. Most of the people that come to the cities don't originate in the cities. They come from elsewhere. Now, the cities have a natural attraction because of anonymity and panhandling and so forth, but there's a lot of things that the city can stop doing to incentivize people to come. Getting rid of these encampments is a very good start. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about the situation with homeless women. There's about 4 homeless men for every 1 homeless woman on the streets. The homeless women, when women become homeless, they're usually in real serious trouble. And as I said, in 80% of the cases, it's a mental health situation. Some of the women will dress up in men's clothing as a way of protecting themselves, but it doesn't work very well. Most of them get assaulted sexually and otherwise. It's a very bad scene for homeless women. And what we did in Toronto is we set up lodging homes specifically for mentally ill, older homeless women. By older, I mean over 35. And these lodging homes were a very good answer. It gave them a steady, secure bed every night. Usually it was 2 people to a room, so you could personalize your space by putting a dresser or something in between, and that was your bed for as long as you needed it. And I remember one case where a woman was taking her bedding and putting it in the closet and making sort of a nesting area for herself with her pillow. She'd crawl in there every night, close the louver doors, and that's how she slept every night. Now you might think, well, that's awful. No, it's not awful. That was for her heaven. She had been sleeping on the streets and felt threatened at all times, could never sleep properly. The noise of the cars going by, all of the discomfort. You know, San Francisco, for cities that don't get snow, is one of the coldest cities in the US. That cold fog starts rolling in the late afternoon, and overnight it gets very, very chilly. Well, this woman who was sleeping in the closet now felt safe. She had hard walls around 3 sides of her. She was in control of that space. She knew that there was a 10 o'clock curfew and doors are locked downstairs. There's always somebody on duty. She knew that when she woke up in the morning, there would be a breakfast line. Everything was geared towards her needs. The staff were getting her medications renewed, so instead of using street drugs, she was using proper medications, and the voices in her head and the delusions and the anxieties that she was feeling were being quelled and dealt with. So it was certainly a huge improvement for her to be in these lodging homes. When I retired from Toronto, we had set up lodging homes for 1,000 people, adults, both men and women, who had mental health issues. And it worked really well for these homeless women. There's a lot of other issues related to it, of course, but I think that as a priority, most cities should first of all focus on that population. Now, there are homeless women who are referred to in the media as bag ladies. This is a really hard population to address. I suspect that a lot of them were hoarders over the years, and as a result of their hoarding had lost their homes and ended up homeless. And the first thing they did when they were homeless was to get a shopping cart and start gathering again. And you see these shopping carts and they're just laden with stuff. 99% of that stuff has no commercial value at all. But to her, it's everything. And the problem with that is that she will never let herself get more than 10 feet away from her cart, because that's the only thing that's important to her in life is all her stuff. And how do you encourage her to go in a shelter when she won't leave her stuff? And it's a real quandary. I know that some of the shelters would have a place where they could store her stuff in a locked area, you know, like in a garage or something like that. But even then, you can't safely bring a lot of that in. There's a lot of odors coming from it and spoiled foods and stuff. So, but it's a hard population to serve. People who are paranoid are also hard to serve, and some of these illnesses do cause a lot of paranoia. But I think for the cities, they need to have trained police officers, maybe a separate squad that is trained to deal with the homeless. And they need to have more laws that force homeless in, and that enforce the anti-camping ordinances, which most cities have, and force the women to make other choices and get them in. Because once they get in and they take regular showers and they have their own little bed and so forth, they're much better off. I remember one story about a woman who had her bed set up and so forth, and she had a roommate on the other side, but she never spoke to her roommate. She was very reclusive in her attitudes, and she never communicated with anybody. But what would happen, her roommate would go out in the evenings, and there was a 10 o'clock curfew, and this lady, who never ever spoke to her roommate, would go downstairs as it was getting near 10, and she was looking out the window to see if she was coming up the street. She was anxious. Why isn't she back yet, kind of thing. She didn't express that to anybody, but her actions spoke loud. And then when she saw her roommate coming up the street, she quickly dashed upstairs and jumped into bed and pretended she was asleep. Now what that says is that there's a humanity there that's hard for us to understand, but there's a real person still inside there, and she very much cared for someone else, even though she couldn't express it in words or hugs or anything, but she felt it. And I think that should be an incentive to people to say, hey, we got to help these people and give them better options than what they're facing now. Anyways, there will be more videos, and if you have more insights, if you have questions, we're happy to hear them. Thank you.